In America, the African American is discriminated against based off of color, ethnicity, but that's not really true. The African American is discriminated against because of civil rights. Civil rights is the biggest problem that African American people or color or people that's called black face, because it categorizes them into a position, into a status of being minorities and inferior. Basically, they have no human rights. Civil rights. And civil rights is something that is given to an individual by man, not by the Creator. It is a privilege that's given, not a right. And African Americans have a privilege by man-made law, but they have no human rights. The biggest reason why African Americans are singled out is because they have no human rights. And the civil rights, what it does, it allows quotas to come in from an action. It allows for certain laws to be passed, where one is treated differently. It would be the same way if it had been Caucasians or Indians or Mexicans or whoever else that had been enslaved in a land that basically had all its rights taken away. African Americans are not as everybody else. They are one single group among many that have no basic rights to anything. They have no rights to the government. They have no rights to land. When I mean rights, they don't own anything, and they cannot transcend the veracity of where they live. They have no international connection to anything. They have nothing to bring to the table, and the problem is because the leadership, their leadership, along with the liberal leadership, has kept it that way. Okay, let's go down the road. Let's go down the list, rather. Excuse my stupid language. Let's go down the list. Voting. African Americans are proportionally Democratic. Public assistance. Although they are not the biggest recipients of public assistance, it is a way of life status quo for African Americans based off of the census of the United States of American government. 3, you go down with affirmative action. Affirmative action allows for people to therefore get jobs that's not qualified but based off of ethnicity and race. You have to therefore fill a quota system in order to be fair. 4, African American people are looked upon as not being responsible for themselves. 5, whenever African American is killed, their death is not ruled a human atrocity. It's called a civil rights violation. And under the law of the United States Corporation, which is known as the government, no African American's death caused by a police officer can be prosecuted. You cannot prosecute a policeman over the killing of an African American, whether armed or disarmed. That's not all. The reason why African American people and their families are not together is because once you're in the system and you stay in the system, things that ordinary human beings enjoy, they can no longer enjoy. A woman on public assistance, even if she has a husband, is deemed to therefore be rejected from it or cut back so bad until it won't make a difference on what she receives because it's not enough. So in order for her to benefit from the system, she must be either unwed or alone or, separated. And a man cannot be a part of her life whatsoever or the kid's life, not in an open way. A lot of people argue about, like the straight racism and discrimination of people of color because of skin color. That is true and it's not true. It's true because the people that were enslaved were basically solely African American people or black people, so-called black people. But it's wrong on account because if these people had any kind of nationality or good standing on the grounds of the land that they live on, they could not be disenfranchised. They could not be. That's the reason why any other ethnicity could come into this country and could get off of the boat and go directly to the suburbs. Whereas African American people can't do that because they have no leeway. They don't know the language. They don't know how the system works. They're in the system, but they're not a part of the system. That's why, there's no businesses. And, integration took away what little land rights that they had. So you don't have any land. And without land, you don't have any human rights. Because a person's human rights is based off of the land on which they live, on which they stand and reside. So if you don't have these basic things, how can you therefore come together and fight against an establishment that, like I said, you're in, but you're not a part of? All of this is because of the disenfranchisement and exclusion from the system. African Americans are excluded from the system to be as a single and as a proportionate part of the system, as being in the working of the system, the maintaining of the system with power. Yes, they maintain the system, but based off of their labor and their incarceration. And their usage is to therefore be taken advantage of by who and whatever. So that's the way that the system is implemented by African Americans. It's not by African Americans only in the stocking system, which they don't. They cannot and have not and shall not, as long as they reside in this system, ever rise above the level which they are in, based off of the system, based off of who they are, based off of being a people that's singled out and not connected to the laws of the land. They are a minority. They are an excluded group of people that are different, that are treated different, and act different from everybody else. The African American in the United States is a created being, a recreated being that is not like everybody else. And the African American has been measured, or elder people around the world that looks like him has been measured by him, his status, and his disenfranchisement. No one around the world respects the African American person. In Africa, Asia, Arabia, Europe, nowhere. Because they have no standing. They don't belong to anything. And the reason why they don't belong to anything, because they don't have a nationality, for one. And another thing, they have no connection to the international community. Abraham Lincoln said in 1858 something that was very profound, and up until yesterday, I didn't know what he really meant. He said as long as black and white remained in America, that there had to be a status of superior and inferior. And he was in favor of the white man being superior. I thought what he meant was the white man by color, but what he meant is the white man by status. And the black man by status, because black, realistically, based off of status, is a dead man. Not a legal entity at all. And no other people that come into this country, they never use the word black to speak for who they are. They don't use it. Whenever you are treated different, whenever you are subjugated by the system, your leaders, and their bosses or their puppet masters, you're going to be in a position excluded. You're outside the circle. African Americans are outside the circle. The same thing that worked for everybody else can't work for them because they have no identity. They are dead people. They're dead people, and the system that they're in is not for them. The system that they're in is a system to use them. And it's not based off of race. It's based off of commerce. It's based off of laws. It's based off of legislation. It's based off of who is undesirable. It's the same thing that's happening in Palestine. It's the same thing that happened in South Africa. Same thing that happens in Vietnam, Korea, Arabia. Same thing that happens in all other places. But it's more noticeable in the United States because the United States is the so-called leader of the free world, which is a misnomer. And also, the African Americans in the United States is based on a certain laws. As I said before, he is freed by the state. He is the property of the state still. He is not a person. He is not a human being. He has no human rights. He has civil rights. And those civil rights can be repealed at any time. So if you want to know the real difference with why people of color or African Americans in the United States are not getting it together, It's not a color thing. It is a race thing. And when I mean race, it's an ideology. They belong to a race of people that have no culture. They have no mindset. They have no power. They have no legitimacy. They have no direction. They own no religion. They own nothing. They only have civil rights. Listen carefully. Whenever one is shot, their civil rights is violated, not the human rights. Because based off of the civil rights law, they don't have any. They have privileges. And the privileges are granted by man, not by God or creator or creators. So if you really want to know why people of color in the United States is far behind, I don't have enough time because my phone would not allow me to go up for an hour on this subject, which I really could. But I'm just in small sound bites, and I'm giving you increments of what really the civil rights movement was all about and what it's all for. And basically, the civil rights movement was to disenfranchise the black man in America, to send him further back into the past instead of forward into the future. Thank you.